is. Okay. Bizarrely stationed. No, this is not our mic. This is. Anyway, so let's actually start. If you want to say a few words, Audrey, about the last time you spoke to her. How about the first time you met her and the last time you met her?
Okay. Well, we met in high school. We met in high school at Delphi Academy in Brooklyn, and we graduated in 1950. And I brought my yearbook with me for all those who say, maybe she did, and maybe she didn't. And I look so much younger. So there's a yearbook to prove we went to school together. And our plan was to, she went to Connecticut College, I went to Mount Holyoke, but we were going to get an apartment in New Haven so we could date Yale guys. The point is, we went to all-girls schools. You couldn't sleep out anywhere else, and it was very strict in the 1950s. Anyway, Joan and I stayed very friendly through college, and all my friends knew her because she was my BFF. We didn't have that expression, but that's what she was. We had lots of sleepovers, movies. We loved movies. And lots of Saturdays, I would schlep, if you know what that is, with her to New York, with her glossies to go to agents and managers looking for work. And as she said in the movie, her work was going to be an actress, not a comedian. But she had a fine sense of humor. And I can give you a couple of examples of things she said then that I still remember. At one point, I took my kids and my husband to Westbury to see her. And she met my son, who was about 12 at the time, and she thought he was kind of cute. She said, he'll be perfect for Melissa. Let him marry a shiksa first, get that out of the system, and then he'll be ready for Melissa. Another thing that happened that I get a tremendous kick out of was that in some ways our humor was a little alike. At one performance, she was talking about going to a gynecologist, which would be a perfect topic, for her. And there she is, undressed, and a man in white comes in and is examining her all over. And I turned to my husband and I said, it's the good humor man. 2 seconds later, I hear this echo from Joan. It's the good humor man. So there we were with a similar sense of humor. Over the years, I was very obsessed with her career. I always tried to read about her, to see her where she was performing. And even when she wasn't performing, I'd go backstage. Say I was in the city anyway, I'd go back and visit her. And once at a nightclub, she did her bit, and then she came and sat with my friends, and I, of course, we were delighted. Since she died, of course, what's my feeling? The world won Joan Rivers, I won John Malinsky. And I've become very involved in reading everything about her life since we were no longer friendly. The one thing she made mention of in the movie about the man with one leg, and her mother, who had very high ideals for her girls, would have been so proud to know that the man she lived with for 8 years was Orrin Lehman from the Lehman banking family. Her mother would have been ecstatic. What else did I want to tell you about? I also brought with me a letter she wrote me on my 70th birthday, which I have in my tote bag of goodies, if you care to see it later. And the wedding announcement that she sent to my parents when she married Edna. Now, we got out of high school in 50, this was 1966, so there was still a connection there. And of course, she was at my wedding and my bridal shower and what have you. Anyway, I remember her fondly. She was adorable. People do ask me if she was a fashionista in high school. Well, I looked in the yearbook and I said, fashionista? Sloppy Joe sweaters, glass pleated skirts, bobby socks, and loafers. That was the uniform, and we all wore it. So I do miss her, and I loved it, and I adored the movie. I I've seen it many times, but I love it every time I see it. Thank you.
For a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey. I know you're carrying something that's very poignant in your hand
Yes, well, first of all, I feel like I'm in a high chair, and I should be wearing a bib. I don't know who brought these chairs in there, but one's very small and one's like a skyscraper. So I feel like someone should be feeding me cereal. Anything you saw in this film that showed Joan to be a nice, kind, caring person didn't come close to describing the kind of person that she was. I first met Joan in 1991 when we were roasting Richard Pryor from the Friars Club. I spent many years writing for the Friars Roast, and I was preparing material for Robin Williams for that roast. And I had gotten a call afterwards from Joan's manager. She was working with a woman in those days. His name escapes me for the moment. But she said that Joan would be interested in talking to me about writing for her. And in those days, I had another career besides comedy. I was a cosmetic dentist. And while I was doing that, I was writing for people like Rodney Dangerfield and well-known people. And Milton Berle, Joey Lewis, people like that. And so I thought she knew about my other career. There's a reason I'm telling you that I don't usually talk about that other career. But Joan invited me to come to her home for an interview. And so I thought she knew, because most comedians don't really respect writers that much. They don't, especially when they're very famous, they don't invite you to their home. And when I got to her palatial home that day, the doorman said to me, "You'll have to wait a few minutes because she just sprained her ankle and she's in a lot of pain." And I thought to myself, wow, I can write her a prescription for painkillers and I'll be a hero, and then she'll want to hire me, So I had to wait. When I got up to her apartment, I realized that she didn't know, because she introduced me to everyone there. There was a group of people there. She introduced me as Mr. Gurian. And we sat in her library, and we had the best time. We got along so well right away. And I never told her what my other field was. We started working together, and I would write jokes, and I'd bring them to her house, because we lived near each other. And I would drop them off, or I'd meet her at the studio, because she was doing her TV show at the time, and we would drive back to her house together. And she was amazing. So a few months later, I get a call in my office. Now, my nurse knew, never interrupt me while I'm with a patient, except if it's for show business. And so she would come in and she'd say, Dr. Burl is on the phone, or Dr. Lewis is calling, The only one nobody believed was Dr. Dangerfield. Nobody ever believed that one. But she came in and she said, Dr. Rivers is on the phone. So I ran to the phone, and it was Joan calling me from Las Vegas. And she had an assistant named Robin in those days. And there was a bunch of TV shows that were doing stories about my double careers. And so Joan called me early in the morning. It must have really been on her mind. And she said, "What do you do during the day?" And I said, "I work." And she said, "Well, obviously you work. What is it that you do?" And I realized that she knew. And I said, "Is this concerning the vicious rumor going around that I'm a dentist?" I said, "I've heard of accusing people of a lot of things, but that's really low." And she laughed and she said, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" And I said, "Because no one hires you in show business because you're a dentist. They hire you in spite of it." And she thought it was hysterical, and we just had the best time. We got along great. Then there were years that I didn't see her, but I would always go to see her perform. She liked to perform at rooms like the Cutting Room and the West Bank Theater, where she worked the night before the tragedy occurred. The summer before this past summer, she was headlining at the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal, which is the biggest comedy festival in the world, and it's a huge honor. And they have several galas that are televised. And Joan was the host of one of the galas. And so I went, and the security was very tight. And she, I don't know if you remember in this film, she came out in one one of her gigs wearing a gorgeous feathered outfit, blue. Well, this night she was wearing white feathers. It was amazing. Only Joan Rivers could pull that off. And I went back, and afterwards I was filming. I also interviewed people on red carpets, and I had my cameras with me. And they said, you can come in, but you can't bring your cameras. And the security people didn't know that Joan and I knew each other, so they were very concerned about whoever would come backstage. Well, when she saw me, she broke through the lines and gave me the biggest hug. And that's the kind of person she was. She would make you feel important about yourself. She didn't care who it was. She would go out of her way to make you feel comfortable. The last time that I saw her was on June 30th. She came to Sirius XM. I'm a regular on Sirius XM radio with Ron and Fez, and he does this series of interviews that he calls unmasked interviews with very famous celebrities like Joan Rivers. And she came to have that done. She was promoting her book, her recent book, Diary of a Mad Diva. And she was there with my friend Larry Amorose, who was her current writer, the one who worked with her on that book. He appeared briefly in this film. And again, she didn't know I was there. I was there with the Ron and Fez crew, but they knew that I knew her. And they said, why don't you go surprise her? So they brought me to the green room, and she was so happy and surprised to see me. And again, it was big hugs, and we took pictures together. And I was asking her about her book, and she was more interested in my book. I had done a book the year before with Chris Rock about the history of a famous comedy club called The Comic Strip. And everybody's in the book, Jerry Seinfeld and Ray Romano and Paul Reiser, Lisa Lampanelli, Susie Essman, Billy Crystal and all. And she was asking me questions about the interviews in my book and who I felt was the hardest to interview and who was the most interesting. And I said to her, Joan, let me give you a copy. And she said, absolutely not. She said, I want to buy a copy because I want to support you and I want to support the book. And that's the kind of person that she was.
Jeffrey?
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
A lot of what we were seeing, there were a couple of things, and maybe Audrey, you can weigh in on this too. But one of the things that was mentioned was that comics are insecure, that comics are hating. Is that actually, I mean, it sounds like...
Well, they say comedy comes from pain, you know. Everybody in this room has had a very difficult life. We all have happy moments, we all have sad moments. Comedians have the opportunity to get on stage and talk about their pain. And the reason you guys laugh is because you relate to it. Because there's only so many things that a human being can experience. You know, everybody's life is different, but there are things that we all share. You know, the stories, the names change, but the stories are the same. You know, and so there are certain themes that comedians touch on it. The ones you laugh at the most are the ones that you identify with the most. And Joan had no fear about doing that. She opened up her life. You know, her life was an open book. There was nothing that she was afraid to say. As you saw when that guy got offended about the deaf joke, Joan, you know, there were no limits for her. Everything was on the table. Like Gilbert Gottfried. The same way. There are certain comedians that will make fun of anything. And they don't do it from a place of hatred, they do it from a place of love. One of the reasons that Lisa Lampanelli is so popular. The same thing, she comes from a place of love. You know when you're talking to a hater, when you're talking to someone who's just fooling around, you can tell, you use your intuition. And comedy is a healing force. And by making fun of all those things, it brings people together. Russell Peters is another example, an Indian comedian who makes fun of every ethnicity, starting with his own. And when you have a room full of people who are willing to laugh at themselves and then others, it's a healing force. It brings the world together. So when I went to Joan's funeral, I happened to bring this with me. I have a folder of things from her because every moment with her was so special. And it was a funny funeral, if you can imagine such a thing, because she requested that. Howard Stern got up, and she was very fond of talking about her private parts. And so Howard started out talking about that. Joan actually gave me jokes. In 2007, I was asked to do a book about celebrities' favorite dirty jokes, because I had written for the Friars Roast for so long. And I got 250 famous people to tell me the nastiest shit you can imagine. Horrible stuff. My mother never saw the book. She always said, Jeffrey, when can I see your book? And I said, never. Absolutely never. The jokes were frighteningly horrible. But Joan gave me the bunny thing that she said, about her vagina dropping, and she woke up in the morning and her foot was in it. That was the joke. That was one of the jokes that she gave me for my book back in 2007. So at her funeral, Cindy Adams spoke, her daughter Melissa spoke, and they all told jokes. And it could have been very sad. It was sad that she wasn't there, and hopefully she never suffered, that she just went to sleep, But everyone else is suffering by her loss, because it wasn't her time. She worked the night before, she had gigs set up that weekend. She was hip, she was relevant. That's what I would say. She was 81 years old, but she showed that you don't have to get old. She was relevant, and I thought she was beautiful. I really did.
Pardon me?
I
hope you told her.
You know what? I had a crush on her, and I never told her. And everyone said, "Why didn't you ever tell her?" I used to tell her that she looked beautiful, but I didn't tell her that, and I regret that. But I always thought she was.
Can we open this up for some questions?
Yeah, sure.
Any questions in the audience? Anybody have a question?
There's a lady over there that has a question. Yeah.
All right, I'm coming to you with the mic.
I have a loud one.
Great, a loud voice. Stand up.
No, it just seemed that she said I'm the happiest when I'm on the stage. She said I'm lonely. She seemed like a sad person. And you said that most comedians, come on with that happy, she's on the stage. She's lonely. No one ever said she was beautiful.
I know.
She
Yeah.
had such a poor self-esteem. She seemed like a very unhappy person. I mean, the guy she was dating for 8 years sounds like a great winner. So, I mean, obviously she wasn't as sad as I thought, but her private life was private. But when you saw this film, I felt sad. It made me a little sad.
I understand. A lot of comedians have that in their lives, and they're willing to touch on that sadness. They come alive though on stage.
Yeah.
I guess it's sad when you're 81 and all your friends are dead. There's not a lot of people to reminisce with, and I can understand that she felt that way. Pardon me? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not in touch with that story. But older comedians come alive. Milton Berle was my sponsor in the Friars Club. He worked into his 90s. When he walked on stage, they would drop 20, 25 years. All of them, George Burns, Henny Youngman, they all lived to very old ages, and when they performed, they came out on stage, that shot of adrenaline, they were like young people. It was amazing to see that. Really amazing to see that.
Jeffrey, you have a question back there?
Yeah.
Not actually a question, it's just an observation. My wife and Joan share the same hairdresser. And an indication how generous she was. At Christmas time, she gave gifts to everybody that worked at that hairstylist, from the porter to the top.
She was very generous. She did a lot of charity work. She was just a very kind, exactly the opposite of her persona, of her stage persona, which is a very hard thing to do. Because if you're a kind and sensitive person, it's hard to get up on stage and make fun of people. Lisa Lambert is the same way, the kindest, sweetest person that you could ever want to meet. But she becomes something else when she goes on stage. And people, the audience thinks that they're seeing the real person, but very often you're not. You're seeing the stage persona. And that's how it was with Joan.
We have a question over here.
Donna?
Yeah. Hi, how are you guys?
Great.
I'm watching this, I'm leaving sad. She is one of my biggest inspirations. I love her in Fashion Police. I didn't know she had so much pain and she was so lonely, similar to what this other lady just said. I felt that she began her jokes a lot. Like, you look at her and she's so funny and smart, but she was so deep, her pain ran deep. I'm just wanting to find out from you, the plastic surgery that she did, do you think that because she didn't feel beautiful, or because no one really said she was beautiful, she did so much things to create a look of love, she just wanted to be like relevant and special? Knowing her?
In the days when she started out, women weren't allowed to look good on stage. They had to downplay their looks, which is a very sad thing. But I always thought Lucille Ball was beautiful, Carol Burnett. They always had to make themselves look funny, because to me it makes sense because we like to respect women, and it's hard for us to laugh at women. As funny as they are, men make fools of themselves very easily. We don't even have to try. We just show up and we make fools of ourselves. So it's really easy to laugh at men. And Joan, I guess, never felt that she was attractive. And I think the plastic surgery was great for her. I believe if you want to do something to better yourself, why not, you know?
I want to thank our guests. You can meet up with Joan.
I'll be outside if anybody has any questions. I'll be signing books if anybody wants them.
Thank you all for coming.